So, hello everyone. Today we are very lucky to have two fleet operators with us. My name is Emmanuelle Toussaint. I'm a VP of Commercial at Cleo, so we offer tailored solutions for fleets. And I'm with Andrew Losier from IKEA Canada, as well as with Stéphane Joseph from Kruger Energy. As I say, they are both real-world operators and in the heavy and medium and heavy-duty vehicles. So I'm really happy to have you both with us today. So why don't you introduce yourself? Maybe let's start with you, Stéphane.
Right. Thank you, Emmanuelle. First off, I would like to thank Electric Autonomy for having me. It's been a very great past couple of hours, and yesterday also was super great. I'm glad to be here. So I'm a project manager at Kruger Energy as a transportation electrification project manager, overseeing charging infrastructure deployment across our Kruger product plants, but also overseeing the deployment of the electric vehicles across the Kruger plants. So in a nutshell, yeah, I'm in this adventure here to help Kruger decarbonize its footprint throughout their activities in Canada.
And I'm Andrew Losier, so thanks for coming, everybody, and thanks for having me. So I'm the Zero Emission Project Implementation Manager for IKEA Canada. Bit of a mouthful, I know. So basically, my role is the change of our last mile delivery to electrical or zero emission fleets by 2025. And I know what you're thinking, 2025 is very soon. So we have some work to do, but we're happy to be here and to speaking with you today.
Thank you. Then let's go straight ahead to the topic. And Andrew, you already mentioned your goal, by 2025. So maybe you could explain a little bit more where you are at as of today, and also what is already in place.
Yeah, so the short answer is we're not where we want to be quite frank. We have a goal of being about 70% by September or so. But today we're at about 15% of our deliveries today are with EV trucks. And I'm talking more of like the big and bulky truck deliveries, so your kitchen orders or Billy bookcases and that sort of thing. So not to mention like a parcel deliveries in that sense. So so we're about 15% right now, about 7,000 or so deliveries a month, which is nothing really to sneeze at, but we're hoping to get a little bit more as we move forward into the summer. We have some charging going in, and I see Charlie there too, and some trucks coming in too to bolster that number a little bit too. So excited for the future.
Okay, great. And in our preparation call, you were saying that maybe it doesn't go as fast as you were expected, or at least that you hope. What it's like at Kruger?
I'd say it's pretty much the same also. It's going well, but not as fast as we would like it to. But at Kruger Energy, we have a very ambitious goal of deploying over 100 EV trucks by the end of 2027. So yeah, very ambitious goal. But we're going a step at a time, and we're making progress. So we're enjoying every little piece of progress we're making. But it's obviously not going as fast as we would like it to.
Okay. And do you think that you will reach your objective, for your targets for the electrification?
Absolutely. I'm confident that we will achieve that objective.
Okay, good. So, Stéphane, why don't you tell us a little bit more about the main challenges that you face? Because you have a unique situation where the trucks, they are traveling more than 1,000 kilometers per day. So we're talking about class 8 trucks. And also, when we were discussing a little bit earlier, it was said that you will replace one diesel truck by two EV. So can you just explain a little bit how you came up with this solution?
Yeah, just starting off first with the challenges. One thing I want everyone here to know is prior to setting this such huge ambitious goal, Kruger Energy did run some pilot trials. We currently have two EV trucks doing a round trip from a plant to a distribution center. We gathered a lot of data, but came across a lot of challenges. We learned quite a bit It's a nascent industry, so there'll be some reliability issues on the equipment. So as far as challenges, that's where we faced it. So reliability issues, but also trying to get quick service for the equipment. So we had to build some great relationship with partners to help us out in this adventure, and this is what we did, and this is why we were moving forward. So as far as our strategy, so the 2-for-1 strategy, I like to call it, it was basically based on the data we gathered during the pilot trials, right? So electric vehicles have their limitation on range, and then so obviously if you want to support the production, it's a 24/7 operation, traveling a long distance. So while the one vehicle is charging, you want another one on the road, right? So if you're not running those EVs, you're not avoiding CO2 emissions. So that's how we came about using 2 EVs to replace 1 diesel truck.
Okay, interesting. And do you plan to continue to have this 2-for-1 strategy, or it's more at the beginning that's the solution that you have identified?
I'd say, yeah, it's just at the beginning, because ultimately with the data acquisition and aggregation, we'll want to optimize our operation, and hopefully we won't have to do that 2-for-1, right? Because we're taking up space with those EVs, and if we can optimize our operations, then we could probably eventually go for like maybe a 1-for-1 or maybe a 2-for-3. It's all about gaining as much data as possible in the next couple of months and years to optimize those operations and get there.
Okay. And Andrew, at IKEA, your situation is different because you do not own or plan to own your own delivery truck, yet you decided to take in charge all the infrastructure side. So what are the challenges that you have faced in your electrification process, and why was it important for IKEA to own the charging infrastructure?
Yeah, so IKEA, we don't own our own fleets. We outsource to 3 really great third-party delivery services, which has our benefits and our struggles as well, I guess a little bit. But some of the challenges we have are, I guess, not have the final say of which trucks to be used or which trucks can be used and that sort of thing, and purchasing power and that sort of thing, and directly, I guess, with the trucks. But what we've done is install chargers on our sites for those trucks, just to offer them, first of all, to maximize the range of the trucks. So in terms of having them charge overnight, so to capture every single last kilometer out of those trucks on their routes the next day, providing them charging for that, and also kind of bringing the cost in-house as well. So we're talking, with diesel trucks, there's fuel surcharges, and it's kind of fluctuating with the markets. With the elimination of that, we sort of are providing the electricity. We eliminate that a little bit, and so we can kind of take those operating costs and kind of control them a little bit more within our own operations. And then also sort of realizing those LCFS credits as well, so those low carbon fuel credits that are available through the government of Canada, and then also for the province of BC as well. So capturing that as well. So all in all, it's I don't know if it's working out for us, but it's on its way to be working out for us, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, so you talk a little bit about the costs. We know that you plan, to charge those trucks at your own cost. We know that it can be expensive. So I'm curious to know if how do you optimize, your charging operation to reduce the costs and also to reduce the energy.
Yeah, so we have smart meters and software available for those chargers. So we've partnered with Cleo to provide our software and management system to shave off those peak demands where needed for the electricity. And then also just sort of, when we talk about the holistic sort of cost reduction, is that when we've partnered with Cleo, that they've built our sort of charging network based on what the needs were. So basically, we have 15 trucks here. They're going to build exactly what we need to charge those 15 trucks overnight for 12 hours or 14 hours, whatever the dwell time is. So having that sort of expertise and industry expertise really helped us to maximize our CapEx cost to put in those chargers and to really realize the full potential of our sites to put in those chargers. So, yeah.
And just before we come to the stage, we were talking about the importance of collaboration. You know, that we cannot do it just by ourselves. We need to make sure that we discuss together, that we share our challenges, that we share the best practices. So I guess that having also a third party is part of that journey.
Absolutely. So having that sort of third party, that turnkey solution that we're available to provide that end-to-end service, whether it's design, build, and then all the way up to the software, the everyday maintenance of those chargers and the electricity and the consumption and everything like that, it's perfect for us and exactly what we needed to electrify our fleet and to get where we are today anyway.
Okay, let's stay on the topic of optimization. So, Stéphane, could you tell us a little bit more about how Kruger leverage their data, their charging data, to improve or understand their operation?
So we're still at the early stage of data collection and aggregation, but we understand how it'll be key for us to optimize our operations. So we are not only getting data for charging, but also for the vehicle operation to go hand to hand, right? So the whole operation that needs to be optimized, you have to look at both the charging and the vehicle operation. So that kind of prompted us to start data collection, data aggregation project at Kruger Energy to help us optimize, because there's a lot of moving parts. We know there's a lot of parameters that can affect the operations. And also we need to gather data on Kruger plant operations. Just there's an alignment, right? So we want to be the most efficient as possible. So we're planning on using this data to optimize our operation. And we already have a long list of identified parameters that we need to follow and monitor.
Okay. And at Cleo, we have, when we talk to fleet operators that they already have EVs, many of them, they're saying that that's really great. They will electrify everything they can based on the routes and the use that they are doing with their vehicle. And they are also made some calculation on the return on investment. And also at Kruger, do you have any way to measure the success? You know, is it something that is really viable, or it's mainly to reduce GHG, or there's really an economic business model behind it?
There definitely is an economic business model behind it. And there's different ways you could go about measuring your success and how you perform through KPIs. I could, go on and shout a list of different items we're looking at, but we set ourselves our goals. So we're looking at emissions reduction, and that's one way for us to measure our success. So if we could reach that tons of CO2 avoided, number of round trips per day throughout the whole operation. And then also the vehicle consumption or efficiency. And we're also looking at the behavioral of the behavior of the operators, the drivers. How are they using regenerative braking? So I could stand here for days and tell you all about it, but we set ourselves some goals, and basically, if we could reach those goals, then we would say we are successful. And if we don't, then we'll learn from that and see how we can adapt, and where we failed or what needs to be improved.
Great. And Andrew, at IKEA, how do you calculate the return on investment?
Yeah, I kind of echo what Stéphane was just saying as well. So I think in terms of return on investment, there might not be a quick return on investment for switching to EV, if I might be honest with you guys, but we have a goal to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, be carbon neutral by 2030, and that's really our return. That's our investment. We know it's going to cost money. We know it's going to hit our bottom line a little bit, but that's sort of where we want to be, and that's sort of our guiding light to why we're doing these investments to make that happen. So I think what Stéphane was saying about driver training and that sort of thing, so that's one of the big things too, to realize that efficiency, make sure the drivers are aware of how they can maximize the battery capacity of these trucks, and how do we route plan accordingly to specific drivers or specific routes or whatever the case is. So I think there's a lot of information, there's a lot of data out there that we can use to utilize and to really boost that return on investment as well. So it may not just be financial impact or investment, but it's a whole lot of the whole ecosystem, I guess, of that. But
okay, and at IKEA, so you decided to use a smart charging platform also to help you with this. At Kruger, it's a different approach, I think. Do you envision to have one as well, or do you already have one?
Yeah, we're definitely including smart charging also in our model. I really don't think there's any other way of going about it if you're going to transportation electrification. But yeah, we are looking at that.
Okay, and back to the topic of collaboration. So other than surrounding yourself with partners and collaborators, what more could be done to help fleet begin or succeed their electrification? Regarding the current regulation, the incentive, or the public chargers on the road, do you think that there's enough of these solutions, or there's more to be done? Maybe Andrew. Okay, let's go with Andrew.
Paper, scissors.
I think the collaborations is I think that's kind of sort of the buzzword the last couple of days or so. But that's really the key to make this happen. This whole ecosystem of EV as a whole, right? Because we have, for example, we charge our trucks for 12 hours or 14 hours a night overnight, right? We really only need to charge for 2 to 3 hours. But if we can really utilize these assets as chargers and help other companies, help other people to charge their EVs, really utilize the maximum capacity of these chargers, and that's sort of what we need to do to collaborate as a whole to really push the needle of the EV landscape. That's at least how I see it. And then in terms of incentives and from a government perspective, I think we talk about like incentives for installing chargers and installing and putting trucks on the road, but there's also non-financial incentives like having EV loading zones in city centers, or having the EV trucks sort of use high occupancy vehicle lanes, carpool lanes, or different ways around to promoting EVs without so much of a huge financial impact, but sort of how do we enable more EVs on the road is sort of what I'm getting at, I guess. So, yeah.
And Stéphane, is there something else that you're thinking? Do you agree with Andrew?
I totally agree with Andrew, but I could add a bit more. And just to say, there definitely are government incentives, and it's a good start. It's awesome. And obviously, I was not expecting them to get it right the first time around. It will. I'm pretty confident it will change to adapt to the reality. Because I have to admit also that without government incentives, a lot of these electrification projects are just not viable. That being said, I'm not just going to dwell on the lack of funds from the governments, but I think we have to reinforce how important collaboration is. This is why we need a bit more collaboration, and that might even require collaboration between your competitors. And where I'm getting at is, something I kept hearing during this event is, there's a lack of public chargers adapted for heavy-duty vehicles. That is true, but maybe there's a way we could all get together and chip in and, start building hubs at strategic areas.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Just back on the topic of the incentive, do you think that for the fleet operator, incentive should continue for several years? And okay, maybe my question, I have a little bias because I was reading a few days ago about the ICE. On the ICE vehicle, that it's a business or an industry that existed for 100 and almost 150 years, and as of today they still continue to have support, some sort of support. It could be rebate tax incentive, or it could be a different loan at a very low rate. So there's a lot of financial support, and sometimes we hear comments saying, okay, but it's time now that the EV market just go by itself. You know, we don't need to continue those subsidies. So what do you think about this? Maybe continue, if you want to continue on this, Stéphane?
Yeah, well, I think we need to follow on that path and continue to incentivize the whole transportation electrification. But honestly, it's not just that. I think we have to look at the whole ecosystem. Everyone has to chip in. So not just the end users, the OEMs for both electric vehicles and charger manufacturers. So it's not just looking at one aspect, but if everyone could chip in, we need to move in higher volumes that might reduce the cost of the products and make things a bit more viable.
So same question for you, Andrew, and maybe if you could explain also why, a corporation like IKEA still need to have also all type of support. It's not about the size of the company to have any type of support.
Yeah, I mean, putting EV trucks on the road or chargers in the ground, it's a huge capital expense, no question about it. I think the incentives, in terms of our roadmap, we kind of followed where the incentives were. So we installed charging first in our Quebec stores and then our British Columbia stores. And then we sort of just kind of followed where the money was, I guess, if to say it lately. And then in other provinces where we don't have the incentives, we just kind of have to do it anyway. I guess we don't really have a choice at this point to meet our goals. But yeah, I think incentives is really a key point to making this electrification possible, for sure.
And other than the financial incentive, in our preparation call, Andrew, I think that you mentioned, there could be other solutions. Let's say, for example, a dedicated lane or thing like this. So do you think that there's enough of those other solutions?
I think it's a challenge, yeah. I don't know if there's enough of them, but I think that we can start small and start with those, like using EVs only in the carpool lanes or having EV-only loading zones in downtown cores, like I mentioned earlier. So I think there's different ways around it, getting a little bit more creative with those solutions to enable more EV adoption is certainly something that we should be working with, collaborating with different companies as well in different city centers or whatever the case is to make it happen.
Okay, and one of the thing also that often we hear that it's a barrier to electrification is the lack of medium and heavy duty publicly available infrastructure. So it's something that it really depends on the state or the province where you are. Do you think that we should have more? Would it be a game changer, for the industry? And when we're looking at in the US, for example, just a few weeks ago, there has been a big announcement about a new national corridor, and it's really part of the strategy. We have seen also some initiative, like in Quebec also, there has one that has been announced, but it's not all across Canada. So maybe let's continue with Andrew, and then Stéphane, I'd like to hear.
Hogging the stage for me, I'm sorry. So yeah, I think public charging is a huge opportunity, I guess, for enabling the EV drivers. So I think a lot of what we don't understand is anyway, IKEA's home delivery fleets are a lot of these truck drivers are just owner operators. They're single business owners with one truck or two trucks or a small fleet anyway, where they charge at home maybe or at a depot or public charging. But we're with these larger trucks, they don't fit into shopping malls with public charging spots, right? So it's fine with like a panel van and that sort of thing, but when you look at like the Line 6 trucks or Class 6 trucks, Class 5 trucks, Class 4 trucks, they don't fit in shopping mall corridors, right? So that's a really big barrier of having a driver spend so much money to get into the EV market in itself, right? So a public charging network dedicated for fleets is something that would really enable more EV trucks on the road. And I think it's really a huge... for me, it's like what comes first, the chicken or the egg, right? So if you build the charging, trucks will come, but we can't build the charging unless there's trucks. So it's really... I think if there's charging available for everybody else to use, for all drivers to use, then I think you'll see a huge uptick in EV adoption across the country.
Great. And Stéphane, what's your view on this?
Andrew nailed it. Yeah, he took the words out of my mouth. But definitely, yeah, there need to be some adaptation for heavy-duty vehicles or medium-duty vehicles for public charging. Because yeah, you could look at the map. There are some fast chargers out there, great. But if I have a semi with the trailer hooked to it, I mean, it'll be extremely difficult for you to get to the charging part sometimes, or just to get around, just to park yourself adequately. And that's what I meant by we need to all come together and get more hubs on a corridor or strategic places for those heavy-duty vehicles.
Okay, and Stéphane, how do you foresee the future? Do you think that it's all about battery electric trucks, or do you see other type of propulsion that could be used also in the, in your fleet? How do you see that?
There are other alternatives for zero emission, definitely. It could be hydrogen fuel cells. It could just be straight hydrogen-powered vehicles. Things that we did look at, but for the moment we decided not to pursue. So I'm not sure what the future holds. It's a very dynamic world. Things are changing extremely fast. And something I like sticking into those conversations of what the future holds. Perhaps we might be turning into battery swapping. Some are looking at me like I'm crazy when I mention that, but that could be something we turn into. But there's a whole lot of engineering and conception design that needs to be reviewed for us to get there. But yeah, that's a very tough question on what the future holds. But there are different alternatives, definitely, for sure.
And you mentioned, Stéphane, that things change rapidly. We see a lot of new technologies, not only on the vehicle side, on the charger side, as well as a different solution that didn't exist just 1 or 2 years ago. So do you find it difficult to follow, and through to see everything that is available and how to adapt? And this also brings me to ask you the question about change management. How is it being handled at IKEA?
Yeah, and I think going back to that collaboration part of it too, right? So we're with the change management piece of it, we're really talking to different stakeholders throughout the industry within both internally within IKEA and externally as well. So the change management piece is a little bit more in depth, I guess, is in terms of this with a whole new sector that we're kind of going into. So a lot of these things are unknown. We don't know what we don't know, and we've really learned a lot as we go along. And I just as an example, we've probably revised our roadmap 20 times in the last year and a half since I started in this project, right? So, and just to say that first plan is still active, but it's just reiterations of it every month or so, just because the technology changes, the needs change, and everything like that. So I think in order to the change management piece it's what we do is just kind of we preach patience, because it does change so often. The industry changes so often, and what's available, trucks availability, chargers availability, and that sort of thing. So I think it's really just a set those expectations ahead of time and understanding what we can do and follow that, I guess.
And revisiting or making sure that the roadmap is being updated all at the time. It's also something that I heard in another panel here this morning. Is it the same thing at Kruger, Stéphane? And do you have a team for change management, or it is being spread out in the organization? It's everybody's responsibility to make sure that you...
It's being spread out, but I have a feeling that it might change. It might be a bit more centralized. But as far as so Andrew mentioned he just mentioned I'm losing my words here concerning change management at Kruger. I did mention it's being spread out. I have a feeling that eventually will be centralized change management, just to make sure we're aligned, and just to also make sure that we get to the end goal, because you could spread yourself extremely thin, trying to follow the technology, changing your roadmap. We've been through it also, continuously changing the roadmap, but at one point you have to focalize on what your goals are, just for you not to spread out and actually get to your end goal. So I think that's what change management needs to oversee at some point also.
Okay, very good. So thank you for your answer, Stéphane and Andrew. Now I'd like to turn on to the audience. So if anyone in the room has any question for Stéphane and Andrew, please say your name, your organization, and there's different microphone in the room. So we have a first one.
Hi, my name's Marco Ovid. I'm actually a climate change reporter with the Toronto Star, but I had a question, just my ears perked up, Andrew, when you spoke about swapping batteries. And I was hoping...
That was me.
Yeah, oh, sorry, Stéphane, my bad. About swapping batteries, I was wondering if you might give us a bit of a sense, big picture of like pros and cons of swapping batteries and why it's an attractive potential for in the future for...
Well, it could be attractive because you're addressing the whole refueling time required with the EVs right now. So if you're comparing with the internal combustion vehicles to fill up a Class 8 truck, it might take, say, 15, 20 minutes tops. You're doing fast charging right now with an EV, somewhere around 2.5 hours. If you have a megawatt charger, perhaps, yeah, but there's not those available. So I think you can address the whole loss of time issue, but you need to have some type of alignment with the OEMs for, to have the battery pack adapted and have certain standardization across the industry where, yeah, you could use the same battery for different vehicles. So that's a huge challenge. Easier said than done.
Thanks very much.
Okay.
Any other question from the audience? Or maybe in the meantime, I have another question for you, Andrew. So, lucky you. You have many different stores across Canada. Could you maybe explain a little bit if it differs, from one province to the other one? Do you have to adapt your strategy or anything that could change from one province to the other?
Yeah, I think, so we kind of follow our order volumes, basically, right? So if our IKEA Etobicoke store produces, 1,000 orders a day versus, IKEA Burlington, for example, does 100 orders a day, for example. So we know those numbers aren't accurate. Don't quote me on any of those, but we just kind of go through where our order volumes are, where can we make the biggest impact with the least amount of effort, basically. We talk about low-hanging fruit. So I think we tackle that a little bit. So. And I also wanted to mention to you about the future proofing as well. So for IKEA, we basically installed one charger for each truck that we have, so 1-to-1 ratio. And in the future, what I think would need to happen is we need to have these assets utilized more often during the day. So whether we can share them with other outlets or whether we can, instead of battery swapping, that could be a thing as well. But also, how do we enable these chargers to be used more often? So we also talked about the grid capacity, the distribution struggles and that sort of thing, but how can we actually utilize the assets that we have on the ground now today, not just at IKEA, but any public charging networks, and you really utilize them to the best of our abilities to maximize those outputs as much as we can. So and that's sort of what from province or coast to coast, I should say, is that sort of what we're looking at to make sure that we have that roadmap identified and those opportunities identified for each province to meet those order volumes in each market that we're in. So kind of I strayed a little bit, but I came back to your question a little bit. So
very good, thank you. Again, don't hesitate if you have any question. That's a very good chance to ask to Andrew and Stéphane. In the meantime, I would like to know regarding the next step for Kruger, for example. Is there anything else that you haven't mentioned? What are the next steps that you envision for the next year or 5 years?
I don't think I've said it all, but yeah, it'll be more deployments across Quebec, Canada, but we're definitely going to dive into data collection and aggregation. That's going to be one of our focus. That will drive the rest of the operation.
Okay, good. And Andrew?
Same to me. So I think for us, it's more about most route optimization. So our routes change every day because we're going to customer deliveries. We don't know where customers are going to be making orders from tomorrow or the next day and the week after. So it's really to optimize those routes as much as possible. Learn from our telematics, learn from our software. what we have are historical data that we know it's going to happen. So how do we plan for that? And then also just like I was mentioning earlier, just utilize the assets as best as we can. So utilize the trucks as much as we can, utilize those chargers as much as we can, and enable that new technology as we go, maximizes the range as much as we can. So it's, we'll get there.
Okay, then maybe just before to go, if you had one advice each to give to fleet operator about their electrification process, what would it be? Andrew?
I think anytime you do something, the hardest part is starting, right? So, and I mentioned earlier that we've had 20 different iterations of our plan, our roadmap. So as long as you can start somewhere and you have an idea of where you want to go, then it'll change a bunch of times, for sure. But as long as you start something, as long as you get your foot in the door, then that's what we need to do, right? So as long as you can get, that first little goal up to par or whatever, then we can help you get to there. And then I think we talk about collaboration as well. So don't feel free to reach out to IKEA, or I'm sure Kruger as well, or other industry experts to enable your fleet to get charging in the ground, trucks on the road. The more we have it, the better it's going to be for everybody. So,
Yeah, and in that same sense also, I'd say, dare to electrify, but know what your limits are. You could go, bite size, start small, gather some data, and then you could perhaps expand. There's not a one-size-fit-all solution out there. You're going to have to tailor to your organization. You might have to tailor your approach also. So, but do dare. So you have to start somewhere. Start small, and also try to diversify. Look at different products out there, so you have an idea of what works for you or not.
Stéphane, I think that you just touched base a very important point when you say start small. Maybe you could say a little bit more about why it's not a good idea to just change the entire fleet and just say, my vehicle, or I don't know, 7 years or 10 years old, and I will just do the switch, just all at the same time.
I could sum it up to, you never want to put all your eggs in the same basket. So you want to start small. There's a variety of proposed solution out there. But until you start small and start gathering your data and understanding what your needs are a bit more, I think it wouldn't be favorable to you to start big or make too large of an investment towards electrification.
Okay, so if I can summarize one of the advice and the discussion that we had today is don't wait until it is perfect. We have to be willing to take some risk. Also, new buzzword, collaboration. It's really something that I think that we are not seeing it enough if we discuss it. I think that also, as you mentioned, Stéphane, even between competitors, there's thing to share, lesson learned. If we want this electrification transformation to happen, we have to share the failure as well as the best practices. And also to adapt. So it is something, it changes all the time, technology, practices, so we cannot just decide that, okay, this is our roadmap and we're good. It's a good way. So thank you very much. I think that it's all the time that we had. Why don't we give a good round of applause to Stéphane and Andrew.